Thank you for coming along today and for your submission. And as you mentioned, nothing that you've heard today has effectively changed your position in relation to the power imbalance, amongst other issues. What are your member organisations, in terms of what are the members of your member organisations saying in relation to how the manufacturers treat the retailers, in terms of, we've heard evidence, or I've spoken to dealers and they talk about fear, for example, and that's one of the reasons why some dealers have not wanted to come along today, because of the perception of fear or of fear itself. Are you able to expand upon that on behalf of your member organisations and their members in relation to why they might feel that and the impact that might have on their businesses?
Absolutely. Thank you, Deputy Chair. And through you, Chair, one of the tenements of why we've been seeking for more than 20 years stronger protections for car dealers under the Franchising Code of Conduct has been because of the nature of some manufacturers, not all, some manufacturers in terms of their interpretation of the issue of good faith negotiations, what that means, what it looks like, and how it's executed. There is a genuine fear that's not based on hearsay or innuendo, but based on fact, that some car manufacturers historically have treated very poorly their dealer network and their dealer franchise members. That has led to a fear of retribution, either in not having that business restored or renewed, more appropriately, and a fear of saying anything out of order that could be perceived as being something that could be used against them at a later date. It is certainly true that we've seen a changing attitude from some dealers in recent times. So at the recent Joint Parliamentary Inquiry into franchising, we had for the first time in over 20 years dealers front up to that particular inquiry and present evidence. Such was their concern over treatment by some manufacturers in terms of their dealership arrangements. Again, we've seen here today, and as evidenced by the submissions received by the committee to date, dealers have come forward again to express without fear or favour their views on how they've been treated as part of this process of General Motors' decision to vacate the Australasian market. So there is substance to the fear aspect. There is continuing fear among dealers because of the nature of the relationship, the power imbalance in the relationship, and the fact that what were once very positive relationships can turn sour overnight.
Has this, you mentioned, for 20 years you've been advocating for change, but in terms of the relationship between manufacturers and retailers, has that, I'm just touching upon your previous point, that's deteriorated more recently in, say, the last 5-10 years? Is there a reason why that's come about, or has it just been a slow decline?
It's like a yo-yo. Some previous manufacturers who had very excellent relationship with their dealer network, for whatever reason, it could be attributed to sliding market share in this particular market. It could be to a number of other factors. It could be to poor product development or product that's not attractive to consumers, etc. You can see that relationship change. So you may have had a situation where there were terrific relationships between dealer networks and the car manufacturer, and you've seen that suddenly change. In other terms, you've seen ones that were bad become much better because they've seen the value of the relationship and the intersect between consumers through a dealer network, as well as other methodologies of selling motor vehicles.
Mm. And one of the points in your submission relates to your position is essentially that it's on page 4 of your submission. The commercial decision of GMH to cease right-hand drive vehicle production is not in question. You've got questions in relation to the timing of that decision, and that's been addressed here today. why is the timing so important in terms this is, in terms of, for those who might be listening at home, why is that so relevant to your member organisations and their members?
I think what's not widely understood is the commitment that an individual dealer makes to that business. So having been selected by the manufacturer to be a representation of that brand in a given location, that dealer's exposure can include the family home. It can include every asset that dealer has to their personal name as well as their business name, to provide the financial security and collateral for that relationship, etc. So very serious decisions are made by individuals who become car dealers in this nation before embarking upon that pathway. The issue then becomes you do that on the assumption of what's been disclosed. You do that on the assumption of the good faith negotiations that may have occurred at the start of that relationship. You do so armed with as much information as you can possibly gather in terms of making a proper decision about whether to invest, not invest, etc. The problem then becomes if those metrics change unilaterally during the course of what was understood to be the playing field, then suddenly people's homes become seriously placed into question. You've heard evidence through the committee this morning, through you, Chair, that there are serious issues regarding mental health, anguish, anxiety, etc., with many dealers as a result of what they believed was a fair and reasonable relationship that they may have had with General Motors Holden for decades, and in some cases almost as long as Holden itself has been in this country. And to see that change on the 17th of February overnight, and then to be seemingly powerless to have any sort of discussion with those that have made the decision is what's at the heart of this issue and what we must ensure is not repeated.
Okay. I'll hand back to you, Chair.